So the next section, we're just looking at some of the questions that we have that are coming in. So the first question that we see, and I'm going to ask you, Aaron, this is, what is missing from the Predictable Revenue book that if you'd known what was missing based on your experience since you wrote the book, what would you now want to capture?
Yep. It's a good question. I self-published Predictable Revenue, but there was a new book came out a year ago called From Impossible to Inevitable, and my publisher there said you don't really finish a book. At some point, you just hit publish, because you could always improve it. But with Predictable Revenue, what I realized a few years later was there's this a lot of people who try to grow, especially with outbound prospecting, outbound sales. This is mostly for small companies, although it can affect sort of any size company anywhere. Instead of how you need to nail a niche first before you're going to be successful with outbound lead generation. And I think that came from seeing a lot of companies succeed with prospecting, a lot of companies struggle with it, and this difference of what does it take, when are you ready to get results from it? And nailing a niche is this idea of like knowing who your ideal customers are, targets are, when are you a need to have versus when you're a nice to have, how to communicate with them in ways that they understand you and see your value. And that actually became the whole first section of the new book, the From Impossible to Inevitable book. But I say that's why people need to go back and read this nail a niche content or chapter first before they do Predictable Revenue.
Well, I've read the first book, but I'm now going to order From Impossible to Investable. I think
it's a mouthful.
Well, it is. I think it's more from the perspective that you've got such a limited soundbite to be heard.
And from impossible.com is probably like a good spot, and people can get that first chapter for free there too.
Okay. Well, when we send the follow-up note, we'll make sure we reinforce that, Aaron. So I think the next question, okay, it looks like this is probably a Cindy question, says, predictable revenue is also beneficial with prescriptive analytics. Oh boy, somebody knows their stuff. Cindy, does SalesChoice have prescriptive analytics to increase sales performance in your product set? The answer is yes. Let me define first what that term means. Predictive analytics, typically on sales infrastructure, provides a predictive score and maybe a ranking on opportunities, and it prioritizes pipes in terms of your pipeline health, and it also gives a perspective ahead of time, because that's what predictive analytics are about, whether you win or lose that opportunity right at the early sales gates. So that's predictive analytics that can get up to 95% accuracy. So if you think you've got, say 100 leads or 100 opportunities in your pipe, the science will automatically, again, you have to have at least 2,000 to 3,000 historical patterns, but it will automatically start learning in the large electronic brain, and as new data comes in, it keeps learning and refining. Now, the prescriptive side starts to surface, and this is a harder piece to build, and yes, we have built it. It does provide you the reasons for the wins or the losses before they actually happen, that are either controllable or non-controllable. So a good example would be if you're in professional services, the particular opportunity that you're selling, is the range that you're selling that solution set, is it in the win zone or the lose zone? So you can actually overlay the patterns across all of the historical pricing patterns or the discount patterns. So prescriptive analytics essentially give you the insights or the reasons for the wins and the losses, so that you could actually alter a decision or change something to actually increase your odds. And then as you make actions, the science learns from that. Obviously, having those attributes that can be captured is key, but that's an area that's starting to be called narrative storytelling in sales, just so you know, where it's kind of like, we call it the sales GPS, guiding people on-ramp, off-ramp, and in our case, we've created this little character called Selly Says, that basically is a little chirper and a feedback loop in mobile, advising the reps, you've just added XYZ connections, you've just increased your odds, by the way, you said that you're committing based on all of the parameters we've seen here, your odds on that commit are minus XYZ, are you sure? So it starts to, be a little coaching mechanism that can also, that's where you're starting to see some of these natural language processing sales tools. Those are more complicated to build, but once you've got the foundation of predictive and prescriptive, you can start moving to more creative approaches that in fact have statistical relevance based on the patterns. Okay, so next question I think is yours, Aaron. Said it's kind of like your clutter point. It's how do you cut through all the clutter, through all of the learning aids, blogs, books, forums, and what recommendations do you have to help sales professionals stay focused, when we're in a world where 30% of sales professionals actually suffer from attention deficit disorder too. So you can add that stat in, but what advice do you have, to really have time to reflect and get to what's important, talk to real people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a big question. There's a few things that I believe work for lots of people. There's not one thing that always works, but, again, this going back to this idea of nailing a niche is if you're a company or a person that can do lots of things well, it actually can be a hindrance because you scatter your energy all over the place. So with a salesperson, let's go back to SAP. SAP, this, or Oracle, but actually SAP. A salesperson there who, even an enterprise salesperson, might have 20 products that they can sell. Even if they have one account, so I might have Bank of America. I've got 20 products I could sell. And it's so easy, all the divisions, or maybe I have 50 accounts. It's very easy to overload a salesperson with too many choices. Even giving them a prioritization, which is, all right, here's the one or two or three products that are the easiest to get in the door for these types of divisions, and making sure they really have a focus on the types of companies at the top of their list, the types of products or problems to solve, rather than just hiring them, like, okay, here's your territory, here's the product catalog, here's your training, now go. That is a big help. As a company, the same thing. Sometimes companies get lost because they're like, we have so many things we can do, like what's our niche? And having that discipline to focus, it's not thinking small, but to focus yourself down to the main kind of problem you can solve, one that's repeatable out there that you can find and have proof for. So I think as a company, as a person, like really focusing on those few best places that you can solve problems for people is the starting point. And then sales role by sales role, if you do get a sense of, here's what success looks like. It's in a prospecting role. You might need to send, 500 or 1,500 emails a month, an X number of calls. You give them a roadmap. If they're in a closing role, it's going to look different, but you might need, do 20 demos a month or 3 demos a month and 4 proposals. And it's not a rigid, it's a path, so they know what they should be doing to be successful. But you're not trying to lock them into it because, obviously the best people often find their own way. And ultimately what matters is, did they get the deals in, not how many demos do they have. So giving them a roadmap of here's what your days or weeks or months or quarters should look like is another very valuable. And sort of the last point is, declutter your CRM. People have too many fields in their sales systems, or they have too many apps. There's a real cost when you add more things to track in your system. When you add another sales app, like what's the complexity cost to the users? Really stay on top of that. I think those are sort of 3 things. That really can make the biggest difference in focusing your company and your people.
Thanks. As I was listening to you, I was thinking about your points in your book about the role specialization perspective and knowing when you're in that moment what hat you're really wearing. And even if you're in a smaller company, if you focus on the role you're to be in, that can drive a specific set of behavioral, attributes and activities. And we need to think harder, and we think about organizational design experts, right? They, being embedded directly into sales cultures or cultural anthropologist profiles. We don't have a lot of maturity of those people, right, that are really deeply hardwiring the company to, to be adept and assume specific roles. So it was just triggering a bunch of thoughts in my mind around the jobs to be done and the importance of thinking that through. And you need time to focus and to put on a different persona or put on a different hat. So thank you, for reinforcing those points, Aaron. The last question that we have, probably time-wise, before we kind of move to our wrap-up.
Yep.
The last question is really more of, it's an interesting one, is, Cindy, do you have any perspectives on ethics in relationship to the quality of the data to ensure decisions that are being made are accurate? What I would say there is that, as I kind of mentioned earlier, there are a number of folks that are putting AI on their marketing language, and they're using basic frequency statistical approaches, that aren't machine learning methods. So you really do need to understand the different sciences and the technologies and, architectural foundations. Obviously the algorithms that the companies are producing through their proprietary methods, they're not going to be disclosing, the actual mathematical calculations, because that's, IP, etc. But you usually can discern the quality based on the quality of their people, their schools, the methods that they're using, and also doing these experiments, right, where you hide outcomes, from the suppliers so that you can validate the quality of their accuracies, and also knowing which parameters in their predictive models are driving the calculations. And we've learned in our global deployments with some of the biggest data sets in the world. And again, we're still an emerging company. Most of our clients are small business clients, with 15 to 25 sales professionals. But, we've got a few big hound dogs that are, thank goodness, allowing us to innovate at the rates we need to. But what we have learned is that having the dialogue with the clients on the attributes in the model are really important, because they learn specific things that they didn't know about their data sets. So, it is very much a two-way conversation. I don't think we're at the point yet in sales where we don't need human discourse. We can get very high on predictive accuracy, but again, going back to the cultural change, you've got to have the trust in the systems of the people and recognize they do have a new friend that they can trust and guide. They can still make the shot, but at the end of the day, they will have a little friend say, I told you 9 months ago that this was a dud. You still went on that journey. It cost the company XYZ cents. Next time I highlight 6 duds, you may want to think about it, buddy. I do think we'll find some humor coming to these conversations, because I think in order for people to trust some of these sciences, they need to actually go through the experiential learning curve, as well. On the ethics front, we are, in discussions with some major audit firms. We do think that there's opportunities for regulatory changes, and we think that's important, and privacy-related matters as well. So, again, I think we're going to see lots of new processes and services and lines of business that are going to be created to ensure that we're making thoughtful, ethical, wise decisions. So that concludes our Q&A section of our program. Before I move on, Aaron, did you have any concluding comments that you wanted to share with our audience today?
Nope. Just thanks for joining.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. We still have to come back. You still have one more slide to do, but I'm not going to spend too much time, everyone, telling you about our company. We are a predictive analytics sales specialization company. Everything's up on the web. We just really appreciate building this community with you and having the pleasure of having Aaron with us talk about a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts on predictable revenue. Aaron, would you like to say a few words about your Predictable University and, you know, some of the solutions that people can find by visiting your website?
Sure. Just that it is an incredibly effective, especially for the price, an affordable way to help train prospectors, sometimes called SDRs or BDRs, and salespeople how to prospect effectively, like really what works. And it's done it's not just videos, it's actually live training for half an hour a day for about a month. So we've had very, very high success rates in people going through, in graduation rates, etc. So especially for newer employees and onboarding, a lot of companies use this as part of the onboarding process. So been very happy with the results. PredictableUniversity.com, best place to find out a bit more.
Thanks, Aaron. So just so everybody on the line now, before you depart, just to mention that we are holding these predictive learning seminars about once every 6 weeks. We have another session planned for May the 10th. We're going to be bringing Rich Benchy back, the president and co-founder of Provide Insight, and we're going to be talking on that forum on how to build smarter Salesforce analytics. So it's really talking about Salesforce's analytic capabilities, particularly around Wave, which is their BI platform, and integrating Predictive. And I think you probably gathered who the Predictive solution is, and that's SalesChoice. But we're going to basically talk about best practices, talk about some of the KPIs that drive higher levels of sales performance, and some of the visualizations on the critical few that we believe are global best practices. So people will walk away with insights on best practices and perspectives on companies that we think are innovating, and we'll share as much that we can, respecting all of those mutual NDAs that we do need to sign with our clients. So just in conclusion, we'll be sending out a link to the video. It'll be back in our archives sometime late next week. And if you haven't already joined our community and following us on Twitter, hopefully you can follow us at sales_SalesChoice Inc. And you know, obviously, if you want to slip me an email, my email's there, and we're very approachable. But thank you very much for joining us today, attending our Predictive World Forum series on predictable revenue. And Aaron, a very special thank you for joining us today. I know your schedule is very busy between your teaching and the beautiful family that you have, and really thank you for your inspiration and the gifts that you're giving all of us to make our world a better place. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Cindy.
No worries. Have a great day, everybody.